Hi, everybody.
Hello, we are Ryan and Bethany.
And we are continuing our series of talking about the top 100 games on Board Game Geek. Now, we did say that we were going to qualify at the beginning of every episode to explain that we took kind of a screenshot in early March. This list does change. It's a very fluid list, but the list we're going off is not fluid. We took a snapshot just to kind of talk about those games and our overall thoughts on that. So we are now doing 90 to 81.
Yeah, if you guys have any thoughts on the board game top 100 and any of the games that we're talking about, be sure to let us know down in the comments below. We would love to hear your thoughts on these games as well as we give some of our analysis. Again, a lot of these games we haven't necessarily played or have a ton of experience with, but we're just going to talk about all of them and see where we think they land, whether they belong in the top 100, what is the meaning of the top 100, does it have any value to gamers, things like that. This is kind of a fun discussion we're having, talking all about this top 100 on BGG, which again is BoardGameGeek.com, the biggest compendium of board gaming knowledge on the web.
All right, so we're going to jump it off with 90, and this is Architects of the West Kingdom. So this is a game to where it's, you put your person somewhere and you get an action, right?
Worker placement.
Worker placement, thank you.
We're the experts. You put your person, your little wooden figure that's known as
your little guy.
Little people.
And then and in the expansion, you get a big guy. You actually do get a big guy in the expansion. Anyway, the thing that's really cool about this is it multiplies. So you put your worker somewhere and you get that action. But if you put another one there and you have two, you get to take more of that. But you also run out of people. So it's not like the turn ends and you get your people back. It just keeps going and keeps going. So you have to make sure to get your people back yourself so you can still do stuff. You can send people to jail. All the while you're trying to build this church, and then once it happens, the game is over, and it's really fun. And I think that this game might deserve a spot here.
I love worker placement, and this one does it really, really well.
Because the turns don't end. It's just there's no setup or cleanup. It just kind of keeps going.
Yeah, I love this one. The expansion was one of the games where the expansion adds just a little bit of spice to it, and we rarely play without it at this point.
Yeah.
The Architects expansion. There are even more stuff planned for it as well, but the Artisans expansion is a great time.
All right, number 89 is Obsession.
Obsession takes place in this kind of Victorian era thing, right? This is a deck building game. We love deck builders, but this deck builder, you're building this deck of kind of like butlers and maids and all these kinds of things. These tropes of that Victorian era, and you're ultimately trying to gain the most amount of land or whatever. So this is a cool theme for a deck builder. I'm surprised at how often I see this getting played at conventions and people talking about it and stuff like that. I would have thought that this would kind of been okay, cool, whatever. But no, this actually gets played, gets talked about
a
lot. So that's really struck a chord. I think that I don't know. Especially that Jane Austen vibe, that was really cool 10, 20 years ago. I guess it's either back or it never went away, and I just didn't know it.
Yeah, it's probably the second one.
Probably. But yeah, so Obsession, this is a game that I would love to get more exposure to because I think that it's one that I could see us owning.
Yeah. Number 88 is Beyond the Sun, and I'm going to be completely honest with you. I had never even heard of this game.
We had to look it up.
Yeah, I'm what is Beyond the Sun? I don't even know what this is.
I have a feeling this came out in 2020. This could have been a situation where it just didn't get a lot of exposure during the pandemic or something like that. But at the same time, it had to have done well because it's in the top 100 of all time. How could we not have had an exposure to this game? But it's talking about it being a space civilization game. It's got some area majority action drafting. It's got a lot of different award nominees and things like that from 2020 and 2021. The pictures look cool, kind of a space exploration thing. I find it hard to believe that this is the 88th best game of all time. It's hard to say without having played it, right? But to have next to nobody talking about this.
Yeah, I haven't even heard anybody talk about this.
Yeah, I mean, it must have a very, very strong fan base for people to be waiting it or giving it that high of marks.
Yeah.
On Board Game Geek.
I mean, it did win awards. You said.
It was nominees for it, anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all just nominees. Didn't win any of them.
Okay.
So.
But it's still good.
I don't know. So yeah, I would love to play this.
Yeah.
But I struggle to believe that a game this obscure is the wrong word, but at least from our vantage point, be in the top 100.
If you've played this one specifically, let us know in the comments below what your thoughts on it being on this list are. Okay, so let's carry on. 87 is Tainted Grail: The Fall of Avalon.
Oh my gosh, this is a game from Awakened Realms. Awakened Realms never doesn't put out gorgeous games. I mean, the miniatures and the figurines in this are incredibly detailed, just absolutely wonderful. I'd say this is probably their most grandiose game in terms of the miniatures and the production overall. It's just amazing. You can't look at this at a table. You want to go see it. If someone's playing this, you're peeking over their shoulders. You want to know what's going on because it just looks that good. Yeah, it's a little bit longer of a game. It calls it 2 hours or so. It's got a 3.33 weight. And as expected, it's a cooperative game, which is really nice. It fits in that kind of the King Arthur legend style of gaming. It's got some Celtic mythology. But it comes down to being it says deck bag and pool building. Sign me up. I'm in. Again, this is a game I have not played, unfortunately, but I have seen it played. I have watched playthroughs of it. I've heard lots of people talk about it. Bring it on. This is a classy one.
All right, 86, Dominant Species.
Okay, we talked about the last time we did our top 10, or our number 100 through 91 of this list. We talked about the concept of the weight of board games, right?
Yeah.
Where it's the complexity and the amount of decisions you have to make, and sometimes the length of the game. Well, this one is equivalent to a ton of bricks. This is a heavy game. This is heavy, and it's long. You're going to be playing this for 3-4 hours easily. Mm-hmm. But that's okay. I mean, if you're having a great time doing it. And the one time I've played this game, I had a great time doing it. It's a 4.04 weight, which is, doesn't get much heavier than that, frankly, the way the rankings work. But it's all about kind of this idea of evolution. There's ice ages coming, and you have to adapt your species and migrate around the board, trying to survive as long as possible. So it has that prehistoric vibe to it as you are these different species roaming around the board as things are getting increasingly harder for you. So when it comes to those heavy games, this is a big one. And the fact that it's a 2010 release and it's still being talked about, still being played, is a great sign.
Number 85, it's kind of disappointing that this doesn't have 87 or something on it, but number 85 is Seven Wonders.
Right.
And I think I would have just liked it if it had a 7. But anyway, Seven Wonders is a card drafting simultaneous play game in 3 rounds. So you are passing these cards around, you're choosing one, playing one, and then continuing to pass it around. And you're building these 7 wonders. So the first stage, it's basically a lot of materials and things like that. Second stage is more things and materials. And last stage, there's no materials that you can get.
You're just cashing those
and
victory
you're just
points.
Basically, you're just building these things. And this game has so many expansions. One of the things that's really cool about the expansions on this game, I know the expansions isn't what we're talking about, the game, is that it doesn't really affect the gameplay, the time that it takes to play it, because it's still a simultaneous play within the cards that you have. So this game is great because it is, it's one of those games that can be like a gamer game, but can be played with a lot of players. And typically, if you're getting a lot of players for a game, it's going to be a party game. And so this kind of broke the mold of not being a party game, but still being a game. Party games are games, so I don't want to diminish those.
Right, but there's definitely a
delineation
delineation between the vibe of a party game versus a more strategy thing. Strategy game.
So I can definitely see why this is on the top 100.
Absolutely. I mean, had a million reprints. Even a new edition came out.
Yeah.
It's supported a ton of different expansions and promo cards and different things, and we tried to collect them all. And this has been a hit for basically everybody we've showed it to. We've shown it to a lot of people. A lot of games did that kind of that pass and play kind of a mechanism, that drafting. This does it better than anybody because you're building something. You're trying to work towards something, not just like, hope I get a pair of sushi.
Yeah.
Not a thinly veiled insult at another game.
Oh, it's not a bad game either.
No, it's not. But it's not top 100 worthy.
No.
But this one is.
No.
Love Seven Wonders.
All right, so 84 is the seventh continent.
So there's lots of sevens in a row.
There are, yeah.
So the seventh continent is kind of a this big giant game where it's almost like a puzzle. It's almost like, I think of it as like a campaign style game or like a legacy style game. So for that reason, you have to
Where you don't destroy things.
Yeah, you don't destroy things to my knowledge, but I think you don't. But what you do have to have is, it would make more sense if you had the same group from game to game. And this sounds amazing. I was offered to play a single session of it once with someone, and I was like, I don't want to play just a single session of it with you because then I'm not going to be wanting more and not being able to get it, or I'm going to be messing up the campaign for someone else and, not being able to reap the benefits of it. So if that's the reason, I would love to get a dedicated group together to play this to completion. I think that would be a killer time. But also, I like this idea of, it kind of has that Robinson Crusoe thing going on to it, where something that happens early on in the game, the decision that you make will be kind of reintroduced later on in the game, and the decision that you made will have some kind of ramification that you weren't necessarily expecting. There's a little bit of a puzzly kind of a seek and find thing going on as well. There's a lot of unique stuff going on. I love the idea of this game. It was a complete undertaking. This is when you have that big of an idea for a game and you're able to pull it off. I love it. I love that kind of ingenuity showing up at the top 100.
Number 83, Lords of Waterdeep.
Lords of Waterdeep. This is a D&D themed worker placement style game.
I hear people talk about this one a lot. I hear it talked about a lot.
I think since Dungeons & Dragons was introduced, people have been trying to make a good Dungeons & Dragons themed game, and most of them don't land for some reason or other. There's a game called Dungeon, which I don't think was a direct, direct thematic
correlation.
Yeah, but it worked in that world. But since then, there's been lots and lots of attempts to make, what am I trying to say? Dungeons and Dragons themed games really, really take off because there's a pretty big overlap, I would think, between
there's a market
for Dungeons and Dragons players and board gamers. This is the first one that I think that's really, really rose into the top and succeeded, and it's because it has a strong D&D theme to it, right? But at the same time, someone who isn't a D&D player, it's just going to have a really satisfying and great worker placement style game with some new ideas and new things, kind of some spots where that you own on the board where people can go and you get money for it, and you get to kind of build the board itself. It's a pretty cool idea, and so there was this merging of the two things, just really, really worked. We have one of our brother-in-laws is a really, really, really big into D&D, and he's less of a board gamer, but he does like to play board games. So we played this with him, and man, it was so much fun to hear him talk about, the reason that this particular mission, this particular card does this and requires these resources because of this, and this thing. I just read about that in one of my books, and he just had all this great detail to feed us into, where the first several times I played this game, I was just playing a worker placement game. So he kind of made all that come alive, knowing all the backstory, and I didn't have a problem without not knowing the backstory of all those stuff. I just was like, I need to fill this card. Here's how I'm going to do it, and having a great time. But so this merged those two worlds brilliantly, absolutely great.
And people talk about it.
Yeah, great in sales, great in buzz. Lords of Waterdeep still relevant.
All right, we are on 82, and this is Cthulhu, Death May Die. But it may not.
It may not die.
May not die.
Death
may or may not die.
Death may or may not die.
Death could die.
Death could not die.
Death could not die. What happens if death dies?
Well, then life lives.
So, but we're living right now. Does that mean death is dead?
Yeah.
Death is dead right now.
Cthulhu death is dead. This is another one of those big, giant Kickstarter-style games. Rob Davio, Eric Lang, two titans of design, made this game. And again, the miniatures in this game are not just miniatures. They are bigatures. You know, they're huge, colossal things. One of the things you can get for this is like a 2-foot tall giant Cthulhu. I can't even get the right scope of it, and like play the game on that somehow. We saw this getting played at a party recently, and it was just like, what is going on?
It's just so weird.
It is a crazy thing. And
they were into it though. It wasn't like for the people playing it. It wasn't like a mechanism. Like it was part of the gameplay, and it was immersive to them. It wasn't just like to look nice. They were like into that giant thing on the table.
And I've seen some incredible paint jobs from this game. People who paint minis at a high level have done some crazy good stuff with this game, and I love looking at it. So this is a cooperative game, as all the best H.P. Lovecraft games are, cooperative, and with a lot of dice rolling, things like that. So mechanically speaking, I don't know if this is top tier, but when you mix it with the presentation as well, you've got something. And as far as especially that Lovecraft theme, was starting to get a little overdone, and I'm starting to see the tail end of it now, I think. And this was probably the last big game that was awesome in that world. So
I don't know, public domain, it's going to be coming forever.
Probably, but as far as the last good one, I said.
Yes. Like that weird Winnie the Pooh horror movie, like as soon as it was public domain. Horror movie. Why you gotta do that?
I wanted to do with that.
Why? I'm becoming like such an old woman.
Yeah, you are.
Okay, so the last one that we're talking about in this section is number 88, and that is the Voyages of Marco Polo.
81.
Thank you. 81. Why did I say 88?
I have no idea. Yeah, so this is the Voyage of Marco Polo, but obviously you're kind of going on that Silk Road where you're trying to gather as much spice as possible, all those different things, open those trade routes up. It's kind of driven by dice, but it's done in a kind of a clever way where the strength of the dice allows you to go to more places and get more things. So yeah, I played this a lot online. This was a game that I've never played in person, which is kind of weird. Yeah. But that's the kind of the nice thing about being able to play games online is you still get exposed to tons and tons of stuff. So yeah, the dice in this game is used in a cool and unique way, kind of fulfill these contracts, and you're just kind of roaming around the board trying to follow that Silk Road. So to me, it feels like a really old game. If you would have told me this was made in like 2004 or 2007,
you would have believed you, especially with that cover.
Yeah, I would have been like, yeah, absolutely, that's exactly when it was made, 2004. Yeah. No, this is a 2015 release. So yeah, it was a shock to me to find that it was that recent of a game to have that kind of older style mechanics. I'll say that older, even just the veneer of the board just kind of looks a little bit more classical as opposed to modern. So it hurt my brain to learn that. So yeah, that's does it belong here?
Okay. Okay, so I'm noticing something in this particular list. A lot of these games are Kickstarters, and a lot of these games are weighted heavy. And I am wondering now, and we'll discuss it as we go further, but there are so many great games that just aren't weighted. I mean, they're not. There's like
ranked high
that like everybody's playing. So many copies of them have been sold, and they're not going to be on this list because I peeked, and it's kind of frustrating. Because do you guys remember when Welcome 2 came out? And there's like 3 different versions. Everybody's playing it. Everybody's playing it, and it's not making this list. So that's Point Salad. Point Salad is huge, and everybody's playing that. And now there's Point City that came out. It was so good that it got a predecessor, like not predecessor. Yeah, that was right. A sequel. And it's not going to be on here. And like Three Sisters is like one of my all-time favorite games right now. Not on this list because it's a roll and write. And are you going to see a lot of roll and writes on here? Are you going to see a lot of small games on here? Are you going to see games that like don't have heavy weights but still have excellent gameplay?
Kids games.
Kids games. Oh my gosh, kids games. There's not a single kids game on here. And so I have 2 theories as to why this is. One is people are assuming that heavy means good. And it's not that we don't like heavy games. One of our favorite games to play is Kanban EV. Like, it's not like we're anti-heavy games. We like heavy games, but I don't think that's all-encompassing of what the hobby has to offer. And then two, so that's my one thing, is that I think that people are equating heavy with good. And that's not always the case. I mean, we have all been down at a game that's taken like 3 hours and it's been super thinky, and we're like, why does this exist? Like, this just
could have been
sucked up.
streamlined.
Yes, this just sucked up so much of my time. And then two, I'm wondering if the games that I was talking about earlier, that it's appealing to people that don't necessarily use Board Game Geek. Like, I don't think a lot of parents are going to be getting on Board Game Geek to rate a lot of kids' games if they're not already gamers themselves. Like, if they're just finding these games in other places. And so I don't know, I'm getting a little frustrated with this list, because people tell us, this is what people tell us, that they enjoy our top 10 list because of the variety of that. We have these heavy games, we have these small box games, we just have like this nice variety, and I'm not seeing the variety I want.
Yeah, in theory, what I would expect to see in a top 100 list like this of all time, you would see the very best of the kids games in the top 100. You see the very best of the worker placement games. You see the very best of the miniature style games. You see the very best of whatever it is. But what we're seeing is just all of the okayest versions of heavy games, and all of the heavy, the overproduced games, right? And I think, so Bethany has two great points there. I would add on a third point, which is a little more controversial, which is, I think that there is a little bit of the idea that if you are kickstarting a game...
Oh, like a buyer remorse type of thing?
Yeah, if you're kickstarting a game, you've got money invested before you even get the product. It would be a shame to get that game and realize it was ranked poorly. So, what are you going to do? You're going to rank it highly yourself, along with everybody else who backed it. So now, before the game's even hit the shores, it's got a super, super high ranking, it's on the hotness constantly, and no one's even really played it. No one's really even knows if it's good or not. And that is, I think, just because there's that investment in the product itself, as opposed to analyzing it, is it good or not? I think it's just like, I want it to be good, so I'm going to rank it highly. So that is a hot take of mine regarding those Kickstarter high-ranked games on Kickstarter. So it doesn't mean they're not good. Especially, I would hope to think that the best of the best of those kinds of games do show up here. Like we talked about, Tainted Grail. I would like to think that that's a higher echelon game, and so that's one of the nice things that BGG does, is that it ranks things by category as well as just the overall rankings. So if you are wanting to look at a kids game or a party game or a lighter game that's not showing up on these top 100 kinds of lists, you can go to just that family of games called kids games or children's games or party games. And within that, then you can find the rankings within itself. And I think that's probably a very much more useful category if you're into that kind of stuff.
Yeah. But who cares about what we have to say? We want to know your thoughts on this specific 10, what your thoughts are on our ranting on these 10s. We want to know. Let us know in the comments below. We want to hear from you. Until then, don't forget to subscribe so you can see our videos as they come out. And if you enjoyed what you saw, consider leaving us a tip or buying us a cup of coffee. There's a link down below. And don't forget to follow us in all of these places.
You guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.